Happy Halloween. Leave now while you still can.
Leave now before Master finds you.
Who is that knocking at my door? Who is that knocking at my door? Who is that knocking at my door? Be gone with you.
In today's video, I'll be talking about Land of the Dead, the fourth in the Romero Living Dead zombie series. This movie came out 20 years later after Day of the Dead. It fascinates me how Romero did not make a dead zombie movie in the 90s. He skipped a decade, and this movie came out 20 years after Day of the Dead, as I said before. In the previous decade, in the 2000s, around this time, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead were remade by 10 plus years. Because of Zack Snyder's success with Dawn of the Dead, that's why Romero was on board to make another zombie movie. Also around this time, George Romero wanted to direct the Resident Evil movies based on the video games, but he got rejected by the studios. Matt Draper did a video on this topic. Go check that video out. I highly recommend that video. Originally, this movie was going to be titled Dead Reckoning, but Romero changed it to avoid confusion, thinking that what if people thought it was a remake to the Humphrey Bogart movie, Dead Reckoning. From researching 2000s horror movies, it seemed like that was the decade where there were so many different zombie movies, like 28 Days Later, which made the zombie subgenre popular, Shaun of the Dead, a parody of the zombie subgenre. The Resident Evil movies were so big and popular in the past, zombie movies were rare, not so common like in today's modern mainstream movies. With mentioning Shaun of the Dead, Nick Wright and Simon Pegg are in this movie as zombies for cameos, because George Romero said that he loved Shaun of the Dead. That's why he wanted them in this movie for cameos. It's not a bad movie. It's not one I enjoyed as much as the previous Romero Dead movies. To me, this is not memorable as the previous ones. I found myself not going back to rewatching it again, but I rewatched it for this video. This movie is nowhere near close to the same level as the first three George Romero zombie movies. It was cool to see the opening shot of like the old Universal logo as a tribute to the Universal monsters. In the last movie we were underground, this movie we were outside and it's less claustrophobic. The characters in this movie are not horrible. To me they were mediocre and they were not memorable like the previous ones. Simon Baker's character was boring and bland. His acting is not bad, it's just, I find his character so forgetful. What else did not make any sense is he tells Asia nothing ever bad happened to him, and he mentioned how his brother was killed by zombies. That is a bad thing. You lost your brother. I'll admit, I had no idea who Simon Baker was until I saw this movie. I love Asia Argento, good actress, and I think her dad did the Italian version of Dawn of the Dead. I thought her cage fight scene was cool and awesome. A disclaimer, yes, I am aware of what happened to the allegations against her. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to separate the art from the artist. A good movie that she directed and starred that I highly recommend is Scarlet Diva. It's based on her life in a fictionalized way. Simon Baker's friend with the scar on his face was an alright character, but again, I really don't have much to say about his character. Funny seeing John Leguizamo and Dennis Hopper in this movie. This was a reunion for them. In the previous decade, they were in the god-awful Super Mario Bros. Movie from 1993. As usual, Dennis Hopper does his usual being over the top, but does a good job playing a rich, greedy businessman jerk. But again, still over the top, as usual. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of this movie, it did have some social commentary on post-9/11, class, and how money does not mean anything anymore and cannot save people during a zombie apocalypse. But somehow Dennis Hopper and John Leguizamo's characters still think money is still useful for them. Again, very relevant in today's modern world on class, economics, for what we had in the past couple of years of economic collapses, recessions. The middle class are disappearing and the rich are getting richer. This came out in 2005, 3 years before the 2008 recession that we had in that decade. Also, George Romero was responding to the Bush administration around this time period. Seeing the explosions made me think of 9/11, and Dennis Hopper calling John Leguizamo's team a group of terrorists. John Leguizamo does an okay job in this movie. His character Cholo only cares about money, but again, it's no good during a zombie apocalypse and it won't save him or do him any justice or good. Leguizamo's character had his moments of being humorous at times in this movie. When he gets turned into a zombie, he comes face to face with Dennis Hopper. They both die in a gas explosion. I will say, that part was pretty awesome and epic and cool. It was also interesting to see how this takes place in the modern day 2000s, and how it seems to be normal for zombies to be the main attraction. There was a girl that took photos with some zombies, like at an amusement park, taking pictures of people dressed as characters. One zombie they called Big Daddy, which seems to be a modern day iconic zombie I've noticed, with internet memes or posting photos of this character on social media. Also, just like Bub, he develops intelligence and leads a group of army zombies against Dennis Hopper. It seems like I've noticed in the Romero Dead zombie movies, some certain zombie characters, Romero was like being human and remember who they were before they became zombies. When I was watching and analyzing this movie, I also noticed how when we see the rich over the low class, it had like a Metropolis feel to it, but zombies instead of artificial intelligence. This is the first Romero zombie movie not to have Tom Savini do the special effects. But he does have a small part in this movie, but I'm not sure if he's the same zombie from Dawn of the Dead. People make that argument and debate, but Greg Nicotero did the work on this movie doing some special effects, and will go on to direct a few like Walking Dead episodes. It saddens me that the zombie blood effects were CGI, not the old-fashioned practical effects. Heck, I was surprised to know that the Dark Town designs were CGI. It looked so real to me. It felt like something out of a Resident Evil video game. Seeing the zombies pop their heads out of the water reminded me it would not surprise me if George Romero was paying homage and a tribute to Carnival of Souls, the movie that inspired him for Night of the Living Dead. Unlike previous Romero movies that took place in one location spot, this movie bounces around. It doesn't feel like George Romero did this movie. It felt like someone else directed it. In a way, it also felt like a pre-Walking Dead pilot TV show that never got far with its ratings. And The Walking Dead show came out 5 years later after this movie. The movie ends where Simon Baker, Asia Argento, and his friend go to Canada. As I said before, I didn't hate this one. It was take it or leave it. I had mixed feelings about this one. I'm probably never going to go back to rewatch this anytime soon. It doesn't have any rewatchable value to me like the first three movies for me. Or heck, for some reason, despite what I said in this video, I find this movie to be so forgetful for some reason. I watch it once and then I just forget about it. That wraps up Land of the Dead. Tomorrow we'll do a double review of Diary and Survival of the Dead. See you tomorrow.